And Tom, and actually there's a couple more questions, interesting questions around this idea of this being a learning opportunity for us about school and teaching and learning. And so, for example, one of the questions is around, may some of the best practices for distance learning be implemented next year? For example, the 9 a.m. start with for best cognitive learning. And then there's a question about how about a hybrid online and in-person option to reduce class sizes to help with social distancing?
Wow. No, those are great questions. I'll say a couple things, Dan, and I'm sure you are, your mind is twirling too right now. I'd say, first of all, in terms of those best practices, is it going to influence us? Absolutely. And I would say the question about the 9 a.m. start and some of the, what we know about how students learn best, what the research tells us, those were conversations that were happening in the fall and fed into our strategic vision too. And so I think if COVID-19 had never come, there were a lot of these kinds of practices that we would be implementing in the coming year or 2 years. Schedule was going to be something that we were going to look at and address anyways, particularly if we envision a curriculum that allows our students a greater opportunity to pursue a project deeply, right? Something they're interested in that way. So yes, the answer is yes. I think not just Kingswood Oxford, I think everyone, as you know, is going to be learning a great deal from this experience. It'll be creating some efficiencies in some places. I will argue till the cows come home that you never can replace the face-to-face and the personal contact and impact of a small classroom setting live. But I think all of us are going to be looking at this and thinking, how can we use this to our advantage in the future to help our students learn more deeply?
Yeah, Dan.
Dan or Dan?
To that, I think this is a great opportunity for us to use these online tools to augment the traditional learning. The learning curve has been steep. We've been flying up it. We have faculty members now who are engaging with technology in ways that they haven't before. Something like Flipgrid, which is video capture, students creating their own videos and posting them. Screencastify, which is where you capture your screen. You can do voiceovers, you can record lectures or record examples. OneNote, there's a lot of high-tech opportunities that we are gaining a lot of skills in. And in fact, just recently as an institution, we created a video archive of these online tools to share with each other to say, hey, did you see what was happening in US history? Look how they were using Flipgrid in their classroom and sharing those tools with each other. So it's been an incredible technology learning opportunity for us. And I think there's no doubt that there are going to be some really meaningful carryover into the traditional classroom.
Anne, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I would just add, for those, for teachers who have obviously, none of us have taught online before, we rely on skills of being a teacher, like walking into a classroom and noticing that a student doesn't sit next to the student that they always sit next to, that somebody's late, that I can look at somebody's work and know whether or not they've done the homework. All the little things that as professional educators, we rely on. And in the online world, you can't rely on. So I think, as Dan said, we are learning a lot about how students demonstrate learning every single day, and it looks different online. And so that kind of arsenal of tools and skills that we now have will make, hopefully when we're all back together, make that real in live personal class even that much better for a student, because we will have that many more tools.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you. There's a few questions from international families. Obviously with a time difference quite significant, especially our students in China. There's questions about how our international students can participate in online activities and courses. Will we use sort of the recorded lectures and all the tools that Dan talked about to make sure that they can still be part of not just the school, but the community.
I can address that. Actually, one of my advisees is an international student, and he is currently back in China. Some parts have been challenging with VPN issues, getting involved with Google, but some parts have been very workable. For example, this student was actually somewhat of a night owl to begin with, which has served him nicely. As you know, the time difference is 12 hours. So I was asking him recently about his schedule, and he generally goes to bed around 3 in the morning, and he sleeps till 1 in the afternoon. So he gets a solid 10 hours in, much in line with our notion that you need great sleep for great learning. So he is figuring out a way to have a good home life, see his family. He stays up quite late, involved with the synchronous classes, but he also makes time on Wednesdays to reach out to his faculty and wake up a little earlier than he would normally. But I know from working with him that we say, well, you can miss this advising if you need to. You can talk to me earlier in the day. Teachers are flexible with him when that needs to happen. So we find some good workarounds that make the learning happen for everyone.
Tom, did you want to add something?
Yeah, just that, I guess I think that would apply particularly if for some reason we had to start school remotely, right? Otherwise, our international students would be with homestay families. And let's say we had to social distance for 2 to 4 weeks or something, they'd be able to move quite quickly to continuing classes here in the United States with their homestay family as well. And I think the homestay families recognize that and would be, in fact, we have a handful of international students in the upper school who did that before eventually we encouraged them to fly home, because the prediction just for the rest of this year, it wasn't looking very good, and we didn't want them to have any travel troubles like that. I think what's very important is that we had that conversation. Our teachers are ready to work with our international students. A quick example: we were going to just do Google Meet and switched to Zoom so that it would be more accessible for our students in China. I think what you'll find is that our teachers and our administrators work so hard to make sure that there's inclusive as possible for everyone, that equity and inclusivity are critically important. And so even if it's only a handful of students in another country, we're going to figure out a way that we can make sure that they can learn effectively online as well.
Absolutely. I want to talk a little bit. There's a question about families who might have either someone in the family is ill or who've been affected by the coronavirus and needs financial aid. I know you talked a little bit about that, Tom. I just want to maybe expand on that a little, and if you have something else to say. But like Tom said, we've certainly made a commitment to work with our current families and our new families that are enrolling to ensure that we help them in the best way that we can. And part of the unknown piece of this is that it's not like we're going to know in just 2 weeks who's going to be impacted. The impacts of what's happening could be a week from now, a month from now, into the school year. And so all of those things that Tom talked about, making sure that our families have the tuition insurance, it's kind of streamlining the process for financial aid. What I would say is just reach out to us if you have questions, because we will, every situation is different for every family. So it's a little challenging to have sort of a blanket answer for everybody, but our admissions office is certainly available to answer those questions now and throughout the coming months. And so that's my one piece of advice, is reach out, because if you don't talk to us, we don't know how to help you. So the more we know what your concerns are, what your questions are, then the more we can figure it out, and we're all figuring it out together. So reach out. Dan.
We've been talking a lot about our online tools and techniques and things we're doing and ways we're adapting. I just wanted to take a moment to share some of our good evidence that what we are doing is really working. You know, we know that our students do very well in college. They, you know, our alums consistently report to us that they are highly prepared for college. They're great writers. They're helping their roommates do their work. They're organized. You know, we get these very strong feedback about their ability to engage with challenging material, self-advocate, etc. So we know that in the traditional sense, our school is highly effective. So some of you may be asking, well, how effective are you in this online setting? Do you have any evidence that you are? And I'm here to tell you we do. So I wanted, you know, indulge me the chance to share some numbers with you. We surveyed our students recently about the level of challenge that they feel in their online classes. And here are some numbers we got back. The question was, how does the level of challenge online compare to the level of challenge in traditional classes? The response were about the same as before, 56%. And then we had a grab bag of the rest, 24% that's more challenging online, and 20% said it's less challenging online. So that's about a pretty even distribution, telling us that we're about the same level of challenge before. We followed this up by asking, how do you feel about this level of challenge? You know, not just how it relates to traditional school, but how do you feel about it? And what we were told is that 67% of our students, and this is out of 240 responses, so it's a pretty good cross-section of our students, 67 feel that the level of challenge is just right. 27 actually think it's a little too hard. And even with all the breaks we're working in, it may be a little too difficult. Only 6% say that it's too easy. And I really appreciate the fact that 6%, only 6% say that they would like additional challenge. I think it shows that we're getting a really right level. And you know, if I don't mind, I have a couple videos of classes. So I'm going to try something ambitious here and share my screen and show you a clip from an English class. And this is a Form 3 English class. It's a freshman English class. And just to set it up, this is a Harkness discussion, which means that the teacher has done a lot of preparation with the students come up with their own questions, and then the students are expected to personally lead the discussion with the teacher providing minimal to no input. The teacher has done all the groundwork in setting up the discussion, and now the question is, can the students lead the discussion on their own? Do they have the social skills to engage with each other and with the challenging questions that have been asked, that they have come up with? So let's just watch a minute or two of this and see how they're doing.
Because they both had different opinions on it.
Sorry, one thing I'll say is this is about August Wilson's Fences, and the question is conflict in the play Fences.
After Troy cheats on Rose, Corey kind of loses like respect for his father.
Yeah. And I think the football part is important because that, like you said, it kind of leads up to all of this. And it's also showing how Troy is kind of selfish and not thinking about his son and what he wants, and more thinking about himself and what's best, or what he thinks is best for Corey.
And then in the beginning, before Troy cheats, Corey says, "Why don't you like me?" And that was that long section when Troy says, "You have a roof over your head, you have food," and he's like, "I don't got to like you." Too, so that was another section.
Yeah, I think the reason why the conflict between Troy and Corey is so great is because the conflict between Troy and the major leagues is like really big in the book too, because like Troy blames his life not turning out the way he wanted it to on him not being able to play baseball like professionally, and he kind of uses it as an excuse because on page 9 he says, "Whatever got me ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of." And just like throughout the book, he kind of just like brings it up. And I think that's what really leads to the conflict between him and Corey, because like he doesn't want Corey playing football because he thinks it's like a waste of time and it's going to get Corey nowhere in life. And he even says like on page 8, it ain't going to get him nowhere. And so I think this inner conflict between Troy and himself is kind of what leads the conflict of Troy and Corey. So
like also throughout the book, like Troy
tells Corey like strike one at the start, and then when he's talking about like football and that Corey won't play on the team, and then he said like strike two when he lost his job, I'm pretty sure, and then strike three was at the end when they like when Corey found out that Troy was cheating on Rose.
I think it's kind of this kind of like conflict between Troy.
So that gives you an idea of, you know, the way we've been able to keep these student-led challenging conversations not just happening, but thriving in an online world. You know, we have other clips of students leading presentations, breakout rooms where students are, you know, coming up with household items that can build them a physics. They can move a ball 1 meter up according to a physics project. We've got students presenting things to each other, whole class discussions. There's a lot that's happening in the online world and we've been able to really keep the students engaged and challenge them to do their best work.
I'll wear my parent hat for a minute. As I said, I have 4 boys, 1 in college, but 3 here. One's an upper prepper, 6th grader, one's a 10th grader, Form 4, and one's an 11th grader, Form 5. And, you know, we have watched our sons be engaged in this way from singing and dancing, recording singing and dancing and putting it together for drama class, singing together in a chorus. My son was in an engineering class and building a bridge with his teacher guiding through in a small group with the rest of the class. And then, you know, watching my son get advice on his essay with classmates and then the teacher too. It really is, it's been pretty phenomenal. And I agree. I know the stats are there and the feedback was positive about challenging, but I can say as a parent, we have seen our kids not skip a beat and appreciate the extra breaks and the opportunity to have some more time between some classes. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, there's kind of a question about the fact that, you know, these freshmen at least sort of had a chance to develop relationships, and I think we know that if you know, again, we don't know, but if school started online again in the fall, that's where our orientation program and sort of the onboarding process would take all of this into consideration. It's not like our students would start the first day of school kind of cold and expect it to have this kind of a discussion. And remember, it's the spring too. I mean, these freshmen kind of developed developed the ability to be able to have that kind of a discussion and be so sort of at ease with themselves. But it's certainly part, I know, of what we will be thinking about if that's something that we have to do in the fall.
Yeah, and I can speak to that too. It is a process, there's no question. As a former history teacher myself, at a school that had only Harkness tables, it was a process, and it takes time. And it is about that relationship between students, but also the relationship with the teacher. And it's about kids finding their voice. And one of the things that I really believe is a powerful value added of Kingswood Oxford School is the ability of this faculty and this curriculum and these advisors to help kids find their voice. And you see it happen throughout the middle school and then into the high school. And those are walk across the stage skills that our graduates go away with eventually, but they don't come ready for that. Some do, but they all move pretty far along the trajectory over time in this curriculum and with these teachers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I want to be I want to watch the time. We probably just have time for some, you know, final comments. I don't know if Anne and Dan and Tom, you wanted, you know, what is like that one thing you want to make sure that our the people watching sort of, you know, go away with that we haven't talked about yet?
I can add something here, and it kind of goes to that last question. You know, you're right in that, this is the spring and kids have had a lot of opportunity to be together and build up those skills. And there is a level of comfort with people that you know. I think what's interesting about that clip is that it is a challenge to move from being live to online. The dynamics of a class can feel really different. And so what I'd like everybody to walk away with is that this school is working really hard on building an intentional online community, and that students feel connected even though we're distanced far apart. And that advisors and teachers are working on activities and ways to connect with students so that they feel supported and feel that they could give of themselves in a class and take a risk and engage in a way that they might in a bricks and mortar school. So I think if you can think about that, this faculty is really, really good at building relationship with people, with students, and that is continuing to happen, and even at double speed, that's what you will continue to see regardless of what form we come in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would add, Anne, you stole the words right out of my mouth, that we have a very, intentional process for figuring out how to constantly improve and how to constantly meet our students with what they need. I'm thinking about other survey data we've collected, and we're sort of trusting in our process. We recently asked our students, knowing that going online is somewhat new, we said, what format of online class has been most effective for you? And we heard from the students. It turns out that what they find most effective for their learning is small groups working in breakout rooms. I actually have several more videos showing that, but we might not have time. But and this is the kind of thing that we then go back to the faculty and share. Hey, we have 240 students telling us, and the majority of them find, 80% of them find that the breakout groups and the small groups are most effective. So it's trusting in that process of seeking more information, seeking more data, and sharing that and continually iterating and building. And not just building on the academic side, but building community with our very intentional ways. So I agree with everything that Anne just said. It's a very intentional, thoughtful process, and we're trusting in it.
And I would add that if you come to KO, you're coming to a place that is not simply teaching the way things have always been done. We're not teaching a curriculum or in a style or for the world of 1980 or 1990. But that, as Dan said, we're being really intentional about what are the skills and dispositions and sets of knowledge that our students will need to be successful in the future and to be successful in the colleges of the future. And that's exactly what our strategic vision is about. It's about preparing them for that future in a meaningful way. The other thing I would add on to what Anne was saying about online community as well, but that this is about joining a community. This is whether it's virtually or in person, that we care deeply for one another here at Kingswood Oxford. We genuinely like each other and we like working with each other. Our students enjoy time together as well. And I have the great pleasure of traveling the country and meeting up with our alums. And it is remarkable to me the incredible devotion and commitment and enthusiasm for Kingswood Oxford School. And as we go through crises like this and this pandemic and uncertainty in the future, it always strengthens me or gives me encouragement when I reflect on the long history that we've had. That for 110 years, this school has weathered a number of very significant storms in the past as well. And our students have managed that well and come out of it better and stronger because of it. And so as you're thinking about schools and what's best for your kids, or kids if you're on here, about what's best for you, we do hope that you take a close hard look at Kingswood Oxford School, and we would love to see you in the fall.
And as a bit of a closing, I do want to say that we don't have all the answers right now, and again, as a educator who's not in the classroom and not teaching, I have to remind myself over and over again, we've been doing this for 3 weeks. That is it. In a matter of just days, as an institution, as a leadership team, as an entire community of adults who really care about these students and who are charged with the education of these students, we had to come up with best practices, best tools, and think through all of the different pieces that make up an institution. So we're learning. we are taking on, I think, what we ask of our students, right? To be be constantly asking questions, to be lifelong learners, to take risks. I mean, I think we're modeling that as adults. And so there's a question about, there's still concerns about how do we integrate new students into the classroom. Don't have a final answer, but guess what? We're not going to give up. We're going to continue to do the research. As this is happening across the world, there's a whole network of professionals that are sharing ideas with each other. So I don't want to lose track of that, because these 3 weeks feel like 3 months, but it really has only been 3 weeks. And Dan, it sounds like you maybe wanted to say something rather.
I was just going to, say a little word about the question about integrating, because I think that's a question that we have even in traditional school. I mean, I'll speak for myself, and I have 7 advisees. 4 of them came from the middle school, 3 did not. And in talking to them over the course of the year, the ones who came from the middle school said, at the beginning of the year, I thought, I have my friends, it's cool, I don't need to meet anyone new, but I just found myself authentically meeting lots of people. We had all these events, we had these, acquaintances, and we had things that would happen that would put me in contact with new people, and I really like them. And, the overwhelming feeling that we get, and what people say, is how welcoming, KO students are. So I think our challenge as a school is to build a really robust slate of these activities and these community building activities that do it in the online world, just as we can do it in the traditional setting where we've done the same thing. And I know that we can get that done.
And I have every confidence that that'll happen, because I've seen that kind of thing happen with our administrators and our teachers. And I also know then that we would, that's if we weren't able to return in the fall, that there would be a set of those kinds of orientation activities virtually, but then we would be doing them as soon as we returned. We would not just pick up as if we had not had the opportunity to do those things in person. Those would be built into that first week when they come back, and they would get to know each other in that way. And so, we will work it out regardless, because we're community and because we care so much about that. We spend time on that at the beginning of every year. And if by chance we have to start with it doing virtually, we will have that, and we'll have some neat activities for kids to get to know themselves that way too.
Great. So thank you so much to all of you for joining us. Thanks, Tom and Ann and Dan. Obviously, this isn't the last time that we're here to answer your questions. The easiest way, if we didn't get to your question, we will reply to you, through email, or we'll reach out to you. If you have questions that come up later as you're thinking about this, just email admissions@kingswoodoxford.org, and we will either answer the question or we will pass it on to our panelists tonight. Sounds so formal. And don't forget that a recording of this will go on the admitted student page, and there's lots more information in there. So if you haven't had a chance to look through those videos, we posted some even today. So there's constantly, we're adding new materials there. So please check that out. So thank you again so much for joining us. And we're looking forward to welcoming you virtually and eventually in person to Wyvern Nation. Yes, Tom.
And I know you're not all with us right now, we can't hear you, but we should all thank Zaira Santiago, who does an incredible job putting all this stuff together for us. So, Miss Santiago, we could not do it without you. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I feel like I'm like a Zoom expert now. So I'll add that to my list of new skills that I've learned throughout all of this.
I'll get you a plaque outside your office. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Be safe. Be well.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.